What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImacSports.
Is also at Max Sports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 237, one of the best days of the year because that means it's the full, in-depth MLB season preview. We'll be talking about every single major league team at some point in this episode. This is where we make all of our predictions.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite episode of the year. Also, probably going to be the longest episode of the year. So, I mean, if you're watching, you definitely know what it is at this point. But I assume we're going to get close to 2 hours on this one. It's a good opportunity for me and Skylar to put our money where our mouth is and say that we know ball. So we'll do over/under win totals for all 30 teams in the big leagues. Give an outlook on each team. We're going to do awards, top three for AL and NL. Cy Young and MVP, and then winners of Rookie of the Year, Reliever of the Year, Manager of the Year, and then our own special award for Breakout and Bust. We'll go into playoff seeding and predictions after that to round out the episode, and then some smaller football news, or I wouldn't say small, but definitely some football news that we'll get to in the super back end of the video, or not the video, the episode. But we'll get right into the opener, and you've got a good one. You have March Madness, and I'll let you go first on that.
Yeah, like you said, this is going to be mostly baseball, but I figured we should touch on March Madness a little bit before we get to some picks that I'll make about those games, because it hasn't quite been the 15 seed madness that we've been used to these past couple of years, but I'm still loving all these games. Just specifically Maryland comeback on Colorado State. That's a 4-12. They call them the Crab Five, all those Maryland kids. And how about that Derek Queen game winner? The softest touch while being the most aggressive dude out there. And Florida UConn. Florida might be the hottest team in the nation right now. They survive 8-seed UConn, a team that I picked. So far, I'm okay with everything. When we come back next week, we'll know the Final Four, but we'll talk about a couple more games before we get out of here, too, in March.
Yeah, definitely hasn't been the most exciting tournament, that's for sure. But it's always fun to watch March Madness. Like you said, the Colorado State-Maryland game that we had on Sunday, probably the best game that we've seen the entire tournament so far. I think I had my eyes glued to every single game except for the McNeese-Purdue game in the round of 32 because I was driving home. So I had a full weekend of college basketball before we have a full 6 months of baseball. And my opener is going to be related to that. Obviously, March Madness, pretty good. But the Cam Smith call-up video that the Astros posted today was pretty damn cool as well, too. Joe Espada, Astros manager, was talking about to the entire team in the clubhouse that giving the news to someone who hasn't made the opening day roster before that they've made it is one of the best parts about his job. And so he talks about, you want to call your mom first, call your dad first, whatever it is. And he says that he's going to bring people in, ends up bringing in Cam Smith's mom and dad. And he immediately starts crying and just super cool video. All of his teammates really happy for him. And Cam Smith got brought over in the Kyle Tucker trade, had a great spring training, and now potentially going to be playing outfield for the Astros to start the season. We'll see how that lines up. But a stud. And definitely going to be on this Astros team for a very long time. And seeing that video was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get right into it. The over/under win totals. We'll go AL East, AL Central, AL West, and then copy that on the NL side as well too. We'll start off in the alphabetical order, so no crazy order here. Starting with Baltimore Orioles, 87.5 wins. Skylar, what do you think here?
I'm going over for Baltimore. They might not have the best pitching staff in the world or even the East, but what they do have right now is momentum. When that lineup's hot, nobody's stopping them. I expect a couple more breakout seasons, maybe Holiday, Westberg. You would hope so. They were top prospects. And I'm not asking for 100 wins here. I'm asking for a pitching staff that has been destroyed by injuries and lost Corbin Burns to just be average. I think they're a couple moves away from 90 wins. And it's hard to say that about the Yankees right now.
Yeah. Looking at the lineup first, starting off with Gunnar Henderson going to be on the IL to start the season. I don't think it's going to be anything too major. Hopefully just a short stint. Sounded like he was pretty close to being back to return. But the biggest question is the guy who usually hits second for them. And that's Adley Rutschman. Had a terrible second half last year. If he can be himself again, then I think this Orioles lineup is going to be really good. Kowser, Westbrook, I think both should be 800 OPS guys with veteran bats like Ryan Mountcastle, Mullins, and Tyler O'Neill all being solid. Jackson Holiday, another guy that hinges on as well too. If he Ks less, I think we see him have a good season. Starting pitching, though, is definitely going to be the downfall of the squad and limits their possible playoff run. Bradish, McDermott, G-Rod, Trevor Rogers, and Tyler Wells all on the IL to start the season, and some of those dudes won't even be coming back the entire year. No ace on this entire staff as well, too. Zach Eflin's getting the ball on opening day. They did add Kyle Gibson, so maybe he factors in at some point as well, too, once he's ready. Kid Povich, I'd say, is the X factor as well, too, for their starting rotation. If he's good, then it definitely ups the ceiling for those guys. And then their bullpen, I think, should be really good as well, too. Felix Bautista back there makes the pen look a whole lot deeper than last year. Added Andrew Kittredge as well, too. But he's hurt with orthoscopic knee surgery, so I don't know exactly how long that's going to go. But I'm going to take the under. I think it's going to be really close. I don't think we're looking at an 80-win team, but maybe 86 or 87 wins for the Orioles this year gets the first under for me. Over to the Boston Red Sox, who have an 86.5 line.
I'm over again. Absolutely, this is a 90-win team, in my opinion. They add Bregman, Crochet, and all of those prospects should make up for the pitching injuries. And, I'm not saying they're going to go win the pennant here, but we could see them overperform a little bit, like Baltimore did a couple years ago. The Yankees may take a dip. We'll get to them right with the next one, actually. Yeah, we're right there. I'm over on Boston. And some of these teams I'm going to be more brief on. We talked so much about Boston over the past month.
Yeah, I really like this Boston team. The lineup can compete to be one of the league's best. Devers and Bregman both have MVP-type seasons under their belt. Durant at the top is one of the best leadoff guys. Abreu and Wong are coming off solid campaigns. Campbell, Anthony, Mayer waiting in the wings if someone sucks, or Christian Campbell's making the opening day roster as well, too. So we'll see him from the get-go. If Story and Cassis play well, too, my note here is watch the fuck out because this lineup's going to be really ridiculous. Yoshida hurt to start the season, but serves a pretty good option at some point once he comes back to platoon or do whatever you want to do there. The rotation is hurt, like you mentioned, but has a plus ace in Garrett Crochet, who should be a top Cy Young contender. Bayo, Crawford, Giolito, all likely at the start of the season, like I said, but Tanner Houck and Walker Buehler should be some solid 2-3 guys in the middle of that rotation. The bullpen doesn't excite me. They do have some solid arms in the middle of the pen in Slayton, Whitlock, Weiser, and Zach Kelly. But the closer role is going to be interesting with Hendricks, who is out completely in 2024, and Aroldis Chapman, who's just straight up Aroldis Chapman. And we never know what we're going to get there. But I do take the over on this. I think the line feels high, but I still like this Red Sox team to be pretty damn good this year, and so I'll take the over. Next up, the reigning AL champs with a lot of roster reconstruction being done, the New York Yankees. 89.5. Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say it for you in case you forgot there. I'm going to be under 89.5. I just can't see this team doing what they did last year again, which was 94 wins. It feels like that year may have been a bit lucky. Juan Soto, of course, is very good. He's no longer there, but they might have a worse rotation than Baltimore now. No Garrett Cole, of course. Luis Eels on the 60-day. Clark Schmidt is hurt. Gleyber Torres took off. I definitely got under 90 wins right now.
For the Yankees, it's, like I said, a lot of reconstruction. They did repair the loss of Soto well in the lineup, I think. Belly and Goldie in to supplement the best hitter in baseball. It's no easy task, but there's a chance that they could be decent. Jazz Chisholm, if he stays healthy, has 30-30 potential. The Martian Jason Dominguez is definitely a big, make or break for this lineup as well too. Year 2 for Austin Wells and Ben Rice, maybe a year 3 jump for Anthony Volpe could be big. No Stanton to start the year as well too sucks, and also no Garrett Cole for the entire year. When we look at the rotation, Louis Eel, Clark Schmidt is out as well too. It changes a massive strength to a possible weakness in their starting rotation. Rodon and Fried to start off are a couple great lefties, but after that, it's a lot of question marks. Marcus Stroman, Carlos Carrasco, are going to have at least 10 to 15 starts in there before they get Eel or Clark Schmidt back. So how do they perform? And also Will Warren, a guy who they gave an opportunity to last year, didn't really perform well, had a really good spring training in my eyes. How will he perform? I think he performs well, but that'll be yet to be seen, of course. The bullpen, though, definitely going to be one of the top groups in the league. The back end of Luke Weaver and Devin Williams is very scary. Middle relievers Fernando Cruz, Mark Leiter Jr., and Brent Hedrick are also very nasty as well, too. I think it's going to be close for this as well, too. I don't think the Yankees are, a 70-win team or 100-win team, but maybe exactly 90. So I'm going to take the over on this one, but it's very, very close, as most of these lines should be.
Yeah.
Next up, the Tampa Bay Rays, still in Tampa Bay, but playing in George H. Steinbrenner Field, home of the Yankees in spring training. 81.5, sorry. Oh, my God. I'm going to get it down eventually. 81.5.
81.5. I got to go under with Tampa Bay here. It's a new stadium. The ace, Shane McClanahan, is already hurt. They have no shot in this division at all. And just the icing on top of the cake here, too, is you have teams like Chicago that debut a new milkshake. I saw the Rangers have a massive burrito. These guys, their new item on the menu, deli meat in a cup.
Ooh.
Welcome to Florida, guys. You're under.
That's tough. The lineup, I'll start there. I think it's very interesting. Brandon Lau and Yandy Diaz are really the only sure things off the get-go, although Caminero and Aranda should both be really good. Josh Lau, injury-riddled season last year, but maybe he comes back and performs. The bottom of the lineups does scare me with Jansen, Morel, Taylor Walls, Johnny DeLuca, but perhaps Chandler Simpson and Carson Williams are really close, and Hassan Kim should be back in a couple months as well, too. The rotation definitely looks a lot thinner without Shane McClanahan, but hopefully he's back by May or June. Still has potential to be solid, though. Pepio, Taj Bradley, both pretty good arms. Drew Rasmussen has had some good times. Shane Baz and Zach Patel, both possibly serviceable guys as well, too. And then the bullpen, you might not recognize the names, but it's the Tampa Bay Rays. You know the bullpen's going to be good. With all that being said, though, I do think it's an under. This team screams like 78 wins to me. Last team in the AL East, the Toronto Blue Jays, very busy offseason, and the line's at 78.5.
Yeah, I feel like I got to go over on Toronto. Tampa Bay, I don't trust. Toronto, I feel like they're going to take this Vlad Jr. thing to the end, and they're going to try to win right now. The money Toronto's been offering free agents the past couple of years makes me think there's not going to be a fire sale. So there's good enough players to go 500. That's my take on Toronto this year.
Toronto's interesting. I was going to say there was so many different teams. Their lineup is very top-heavy. To me, Vladdy Jr. is an MVP-type bat. Santander has 40 homer power. But they're going to need bounce-back years from Bichette, Andres Jimenez, who they added, Alejandro Kirk, and George Springer if they want to be competitive. Bottom half of the lineup right now, according to Fangraphs, is Alan Roden, who I don't really know, Ernie Clement, who actually was a former A, and Nathan Lukes, who's their potential starting center fielder with Dalton Varsho on the IL to start the season. And I don't think that's a good way to end your lineup for sure. The rotation is very deep, which I think is a big plus on their team. 1 through 5 are guys I trust giving the ball in big games. Possibly the best rotation in the AL East as of opening day, in my opinion. And the bullpen doesn't scream wow, but has at least 3 or 4 arms I'd like. Toronto, I think, looks better than last year, but the AL East is going to be super competitive this year, and I do think they go slightly under that 78.5 win line. Moving to the AL Central with the White Sox, who are at a whopping 53.5 wins.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go under again for the White Sox. That was 41 for them last season, and nothing has changed. You know, everyone around Michael Jordan said for years about how Jerry Reinsdorf was probably the one who blew up the Bulls, not Jerry Krause. If anyone's watched The Last Dance, I'm pretty sure you have. But these White Sox teams literally make me sick. I don't even want to joke about them. We thought the A's situation was bad. This is just as terrible. I don't care about Chicago. I say under.
Yeah, the lineup's going to suck, but at least there are some big league bats, I think. Continued opportunity for Miguel Vargas, Andrew Bond, and Corey Lee, plus several prospects should definitely help out some guys. The rotation is also going to suck. Tommy John for Kai Bush and Drew Thorpe is not going to help them. Sean Burke, opening day starter, did show some solid stuff in spring, so maybe he's a plus for them. But outside of that, until they get Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith in there, I don't think we're going to see too much from them. And the bullpen is the land of opportunity. Mike Clevenger is their closer, according to Fangraphs,
Awesome.
which is a new one to me. There's several names in there that we've seen before, though, like Tyler Gilbert, Bryce Wilson, and one or two of these guys are definitely going to be dealt at the deadline if they do perform. So don't expect Tyler Gilbert to be there for 6 years if he has a great, first couple of months with the Sox. I am going to take the under two. This is not a big league team right now. They're going to trade Louis Robert at some point as well, too. And that's just going to make this team worse. So I'm going to take the under in also a very competitive AL Central. Moving to the Cleveland Guardians now at 82.5 wins.
I'm going over 82.5. I didn't love the offseason, but every other team than the White Sox in the Central has a legit shot here. I'm not asking for 92 again, but I think over 82 is going to be an easy pick for the Guards. They usually play a lot better than what their lineup says on paper.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over as well, too. The biggest thing with them is losing Josh Naylor. I don't think it's going to hurt them too much. It's a growth year for Manzardo, plus a solid vet like Carlos Santana comes in for the third time, I think, and should fill the void of that. Quan and J-Ram are proven all-stars. Lane Thomas could be a big threat. Weakness on the offensive side is going to be middle infield with Gabriel Arias and Brian Rauchio not having really any good track record in the MLB. But Bazzana should be up at any point if need be. Curious to see how they use Nolan Jones back in his return to the organization. It looks like he's not going to make the opening day roster, but maybe, comes up at some point. David Fry, another guy who was big for them last year, is out to start the year, but maybe back in June, coming off the elbow surgery. The rotation, I think, should be competent. It doesn't scream an overpowering quality start every single day like Phillies or maybe even the Blue Jays like we talked in the past, but it screams a lot of 5-inning, 2 earned run games, which is exactly what they need when they have a bullpen like they do. But Gavin Williams, I think, could be an ace. Tanner Biabiosa, still one of the most underrated arms in the game, who just signed a big extension. Plus Shane Bieber, John Means, maybe coming back at some point could help. But that bullpen, like I just talked about, will compete for one of the best in the league. It allows a rotation to not go 6+. Clase, Cade Smith, Gaddis, Sewald, all possible ninth-inning guys if need be. But I would figure that Emmanuel Clase holds that down the whole year. So I'm going to take the over 82.5 wins. Don't really know why that line was so low. Also, Stephen Vogt factors into that. He was a damn good manager. Next up, the Detroit Tigers, who snuck into a playoff spot this year, get a little bit of respect in the wind over under at 83.5.
Yeah, I'm going over again with these guys, and it really feels like these lines are making you just choose. They're like, we have no idea. You guys figure it out in the Central. So I can't leave the Tigers out after how they looked last season. An unstoppable pitching staff now has an improved Casey Mize and Jackson Jobe. Gleyber Torres needs a big year, I think, but we're both on the same page with that. Much needed help in the lineup. I think they're over.
Yeah. Lineup intrigues me. A lot of platoon spots for young guys. Riley Green and Gleyber Torres, probably the most proven guys in there. Probably both 800-ish OPS guys. Kerry Carpenter, proven versus righties, but hopefully he gets a chance for lefties as well, too. If Torque and Colt Keith have big seasons, the AL Central is definitely in play for them. Meadows and Bierling, 2 contributors from last year, out to start the year is going to hurt, though. Pitching staff looks a lot better with the Cy Young surrounded with a ton of talent. Scooble plus ace. Jay Flair are good, too. Reese Olson, Casey Mize, and Jackson Jobe to round out the staff seems way better than the 1.5 starters that they had by the end of the regular season last year. Bullpen is A.J. Hinch's job to navigate, but he's done a great job of it in the past. Lots of solid arms, but no clear closer. Foley, Brisky, Hilton, Canely, and Best all pretty good options there. So With that being said, I am going to take the under. I don't think the offense does quite enough. There's too many questions for me there, and a pretty stacked AL Central for how it's been in previous years. Next up, the Kansas City Royals, also at 83.5 wins.
I'm going over 3 in a row in the Central. Like you said, we kind of have to start giving them some credit. They played very well, all 3 of these teams at the end of the season. So, yeah, I'm going over. Great defense and great pitching is usually a pretty safe bet in a division that doesn't score a lot of runs. They're going to need a couple breakouts in the lineup. I don't think many people would be shocked if Cags was one of those guys. They won 86 last year. Bobby Witt is still here. They can go over a couple games over 500. Even if they do have a bad year, I'm okay taking the over with all these teams.
Yeah. It's a top-heavy lineup that definitely could have success still. The back end of Renfroe, Melendez, Michael Garcia, and Kyle Isbell doesn't, say playoff team to you. But if you have the front end of India, Witt, Vinny P, and Salvi, then it does. The starting staff is also super deep. Cole Reagans and Lugo both have ace potential. Waka and Lorenzen both potential 160 to 180 inning guys with 3.5 to 4.2 ERAs. And Chris Bubich as well too. Looked really good in spring. Stuff is pretty solid. If he stays healthy, maybe he becomes an impact arm for them as well too. The bullpen I think is super underrated as well. One of the better groups in 24, and adding Carlos Estevez to close, Lucas Erceg and Hunter Harvey in the setup roles are extremely nasty. So I'm going to take the over for the Kansas City Royals. Bobby Witt has a chance to put up a 12-WAR season, and when you do that, you're probably going to go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Last team in the Central, the Minnesota Twins at 84.5 wins, the most in the division.
Well, someone's got to get left behind, Kyle. I'm going under on Minnesota. And even though this division usually has a massive shakeup every year, Minnesota hasn't really done anything to change their future here. They've locked into some interesting contracts. They can't seem to stay healthy. It's bad juju. And I know you shouldn't make all your picks like this, but I'm doing that with Minnesota. I don't think they've earned it.
Yeah. The lineup needs to stay healthy, but you're asking a lot when it comes to that. Royce Lewis and Brooks Lee are already hurt. Buxton and Correa are great, but are you going to get 120 games from them? I'm not too sure. Matt Wallner, Trevor Larnach, Jose Miranda, Ryan Jeffers, Edward Julian, all guys that could be all-stars or in AAA by June. So you don't really know about them. The rotation looks good in my eyes. Simeon Woods, Richardson, and Chris Paddock, a solid back end with some options, with some prospects ready to take their spots if need be. The bullpen, I do think, is a huge strength for them. Duran and Jax, the back end is pretty ridiculous. Sands, Alcala, Colome, Varlin, all pretty good options as well, too, in the middle. So this line, it felt like it was a bait. Highest line in the Central for a team that really disappointed last year. I wanted to take the under, but I'm going to take the over. I think some things break better than what they did last year for them. And the injuries can't be much worse, and they still won 82 games last year. So I'll take the over. I don't think it's by a ton. I don't think this is like a 100-win team. But 85 wins is very reachable. Next up in the AL West, we are talking about our squad. The A's at 71.5 victories. Skyler, what do you think here?
I'm taking the over, but I still don't think they're going to be anywhere near the playoffs. And Alex and some others seem to think that we're going to win 90 games somehow. But it's not going to happen because of the pitching and how thin our roster is compared to the rest of the West. It doesn't mean we can't have some fun. The foundation's built here, right? We got Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler extended, starting to spend some money. But Rome wasn't built in a night. This is not the 2012 team, and I'm not going to pretend like it is.
Start with the lineup, as I always do. It doesn't have much change, but it's a good group that should see some growth. Lawrence Butler and Brett Rooker are all-star level guys. Blade and Shea both have the ability to be 750 to 800 OPS with 25 to 30 homers. Top prospects will get an everyday shot, and Jacob Wilson and Tyler Soderstrom. Curious to see how Max Muncy replaces Geloff to start the season, but I honestly don't know. Nick Kurtz and Colby Thomas are lurking as well too, and those seem to be some big potential bats in that spot. Starting rotation is much improved, even though it's not going to be like a crazy good group. Luis Severino and Springs aren't 1-2 type guys, but adds a lot of length to a rotation. Didn't have it in previous years, and there's less variables when those two guys are going to start. When we're giving the ball to some guy who got 2 starts in his entire big league career, and we just send him off waivers or something like that. I do think Beto and Sears are solid, viable 3-4 options. So I do think we see some improvement there. The bullpen isn't crazy, but it's led by perhaps the best closer in the MLB in Mason Miller. Leclerc is really the only real arm with high leverage seasons under his belt at the big league level. Ferguson and Murdoch could be some solid arms, though. The breakout, while Otanya's is hurt as well, too. I think the bullpen probably will be one of the weaker parts of the team, though. But even with all that, I'm taking the over. Will it be 90 games? Likely not. I hope it is. It'd be really fun. But 71.5 seems like a ridiculously low line, and I think there's a vast majority of people are hopping on the over for this one. Moving to the Houston Astros at 87.5.
I'm going under on Houston. I still think they're going to be relatively dangerous, but they haven't seen this many new faces in Houston in about 10 years now. So I think we should expect a slow first start, maybe figure it out late. I do like Cam Smith. That seems to be a pretty good replacement. And maybe, like you said, stick him in the outfield, see what happens, because obviously he has made the squad and he's got a pretty good bat. So I'm intrigued, but I'm not going to pick him to do much more than that. I'm under.
Losses are going to hurt. I still think the lineup is good, but it's going to look a whole lot different. It's not equal, but adding Isaac Paredes, Christian Walker, and Cam Smith will definitely ease some of that hurt with the loss of 2 stars, Tucker and Bregman. I wouldn't expect a top 5 lineup, but something close to average or slightly above average would be what I expect. The rotation, though, is very questionable and has a lot of questions outside of Framber. Do we get a first or second half season from Hunter Brown? Does Renaud Blanco regress back to his expected stats in 2025? He had a 2.8 ERA last year, but expected ERA at 4. Can Arrighetti improve his command? Too many walks and too many homers last year. Which version of Hayden Wesneski do the Astros get? Good news for them is that a few of those answers will likely be good, and even if some of those answers are bad, they'll get some arms back at some point in McCullers, Garcia, and JP France. The bullpen as well, too, looks really good in the back end. Hader, Abreu, Scott, a good 7, 8, 9. Has some questions in the middle of the bullpen, but who doesn't at this point? Even with all that, I am going to take the under. The AL West has definitely improved this year, and the Astros, I think, are the only team that got worse. And when you do that, you're definitely going to feel the repercussions of it. So I'll go under 87.5 wins. Next up, the Angels, also at 71.5 wins, same as the A's.
A little better for the Angels, but I'm still feeling forced to take the under here. Mike Trout is back, so you get a couple more games back, but this is still a disaster, right? As soon as one of your pitchers gets hurt, it's over. Not to mention everybody in the starting 9 has at one point been on the 60-day and like within the year. I do not trust them. I think they're going to finish last.
Yeah. Angels are interesting. It gets ugly quick in the back end of the order with T.A., Joe Adell, and Kevin Smith at the end. No Zach Neto to start is definitely going to hurt as well, too. If they get a healthy Trout, anything is possible. But at this point, I don't even know if the healthy Trout is possible. If it goes bad, I expect a lot of the guys starting on opening day to be gone by August. The rotation needs big season. For Reed Detmers, a former prospect. They just added, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name, but the guy that took in the second round last year. I don't know if he's going to.
I saw that.
I don't know if he's going to end up being in the rotation, but definitely a guy I assume that they would want to have start games. That replaces perhaps Kyle Hendricks. because I would not like him starting games. Jose Soriano has good stuff, but needs to change his fastball usage, which was a big problem for him last year. But there are some solid bets in Yusei Kikuchi and Tyler Anderson. The bullpen, not the worst, but a good group outside of Kenley, or not the worst, but not a good group outside of Kenley and Joyce. I've read my note wrong. Brock Burke and Quijada have had some decent stretches, so maybe that you look out for them, but this is not a playoff team. This is not a good team, and this team is probably going to have to navigate a lot of injury in 2025, so I'm going with the under 71.5 wins. Final two teams in the AL West, maybe the most interesting, starting with the Seattle Mariners at 84.5 wins.
I think it's finally time to take the under on Seattle. Possibly the best rotation in baseball, but they can't hit a thing right now. You know, the M's could be a couple of big trades away from being trusted, but I can't do it. I don't like what I've been seeing. Cal Raleigh is extended. That's awesome. He's one of the only guys you can trust in the lineup. But this isn't the final roster. I think they know what they're doing, but maybe they're afraid to trade one of their pitchers and trade the wrong one. But this is not a roster ready to compete.
Yeah, looking at the lineup, it's the same thing that they ran out there last year, and it was a big problem for them. However, I do think they get some sort of bounce back years from guys like Julio, Randy, Polanco, and J.P. Crawford as well, too. If they added someone substantial like a Bregman or something, I think we're looking at hands down best team in the AL West, and just give them. Well, there's not a trophy for the AL West, but just give them, that trophy to start the season, because their rotation, even without George Kirby to start the year, is ridiculous. Gilbert, Castillo, Miller, Wu, all top of the line guys, and Emerson Hancock, who they expect to take the 5, has struggled in his big leagues prior history, but still a former top prospect, and the stuff is still good. Also, the bullpen is ridiculously nasty and will make up for the few bad starts that they get. It's arms galore with Munoz taking the closer role, and if he's healthy, this bullpen, starting staff in general, everything pitching side could be the best in the league. So for that side alone, and if they get some regression back to the mean for those guys who had a bad year last year, I'll take the over and bet on them getting enough to be over that 84.5 line. Next up, the Texas Rangers, last team in the AL at 85.5 wins.
Yeah, one of the main reasons why I had Seattle under is because I think Texas is a pretty good matchup against Seattle. I'm not necessarily calling for 90, but someone's got to win this thing, and Texas looks the most loaded right now in what could be a wide-open division. They add some protection in the lineup, Jake Berger, Jock Peterson. Plus, it's all about the X factors here. Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, they were drafted high for a reason. They have to throw a lot of innings for this thing to work. But I'm going to bet on them.
That 2023 lineup, I think, is back. They lose Nate Lau, but they add Jock Peterson and Jake Berger, which I think is an overall net plus. My note on here below that was, please be healthy, Evan Carter. We learned that he's actually not making the team, which kind of sucks. Because they drafted him in fantasy too. Bad spring, hurt all last year pretty much. Maybe we see him in May. Just, have a extended type spring training in AAA for a little bit, considering the options that they have with Leody Taveras and Josh Smith as well too. Seager, Semien, and Langford all expecting big seasons. 1 through 9, the lineup just absolutely rakes. So I think that there's a good chance that they have one of the best, 5 to 3 lineups in the entire MLB. The rotation is interesting, though. Jacob deGrom, if he's healthy, it changes everything, and that's obvious. If he's hurt, then it's not going to be as good. And if he's healthy, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. They need a lot from Nathan Eovaldi because he's really the one sure thing right now. So I'd say going to have to get 180 innings from him. Tyler Mahle as well too. He's coming off injured campaigns in 23 and 24, so that makes the need for Eovaldi even more. Cody Bradford and John Gray are already hurt, so they're going to rely on Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. If they perform, that can change everything as well too. but the bullpen is definitely the weakness of their team. Chris Martin, Robert Garcia are decent options, but those are their completely best arms. I'd expect some high scoring games from this Rangers team. Complete opposite of the Seattle Mariners, who we just talked about. If you combine those two teams, we're looking at like maybe taking down the Dodgers. But that's not how it goes. Even with that, though, I take the over with this Rangers team. I think they get closer to that 90-win season that they had in 2023 when they won the World Series. Looking at the NL East now, starting with the Braves at 86.5 wins.
I think it's right there, and I went back and forth for a while, but I'm going to have to take the under by a game or two. I think they're going to be completely fine, but it's a bunch of early season injuries for these guys. Acuna, Murphy, Strider, much more. I'm not saying that they can't do it. We'll get to our playoff predictions in a little bit later in the episode, but some guys got to step up for sure. It's not going to be a guaranteed over.
Yeah. Start with the lineup as always. It should mash. Even with no Acuna, it's going to be tough, but hopefully back by May or June. With the core of Profar, Riley, Olson, Ozuna, Harris, Albies, you still got a great top six. Brooks Baldwin, I think, should be fine. Or not Brooks Baldwin, Blake Baldwin. I'm always blanking. Drake Baldwin, maybe.
Drake, yeah.
Something like, yeah. Drake Baldwin should be fine. With no Sean Murphy to start the year, kind of similar to last year. Hopefully he gets healthy at some point, though. The rotation looks solid. No Strider to start the year. But again, hopefully back in May or June. Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, and Spencer Schwellenbach look to be a top three. Jeez, I'm stumbling on my words today. Even without Strider, Grant Holmes was solid in his opportunity last year. Now gets a chance to stick. And AJ Smith-Shawver is not a bad five either. The bullpen has a plethora of decent arms surrounded by a good closer in Rafael Iglesias. And just because of how many injuries they had last year and the win total that they put up, I think it's similar injury side this year. And I think we're going to get a lot better seasons from Riley and Olson specifically. So I'm going to take the over on the Braves 86.5 line. Seems like we're disagreeing with a lot of stuff. Maybe not on this one, though. The Miami Marlins at 63.5 wins.
Dude, I'm going over on Miami. Nothing crazy, just a couple games. But I like a lot of the prospects. Sandy's back for now. Maybe if Sandy wasn't back, I wouldn't be as convinced. But there's a couple other pitchers, Meyer, Weathers, Cabrera, ton of potential still. They could hit 65 wins.
Yeah. In my opinion, they don't. The lineup is the worst in the league, so I'm taking the under there. Xavier Edwards is their best bat, and he only has a half season of good MLB baseball under his belt. It's a land of opportunity, much like the White Sox bullpen I mentioned for journeymen and prospects, especially if no Connor Norby to start the season, who was probably their highest potential bat, I'd say. The rotation does have the ability to win them some games. My top note, Sandy is back, but also not for long because he'll probably be gone by May or June due to a trade. Max Meyer had a good spring, so I think he pops off. Cal Quantrill has had some decent seasons. Volante Palazzo has some solid stuff as well, too. I like Edward Cabrera and Ryan Weathers, but they are out to start the year and hopefully back soon at some points. And maybe we see Yuri Perez at some point in 25. They're being super conservative with his return back from Tommy John, I believe. So maybe we see him get like 30 innings in between August and September or something like that. The bullpen has 0 names you would recognize if you're a casual, but still should be okay. They're going to try a lot of new things with new guys. Calvin Fouché, I think, could be solid. And they're going to see what sticks. So expect some growing pains with this team. Outside the rotation, everything sucks. So give me the under, 63.5. I think this could be a potential worst team in baseball. Looking at the Mets now, pretty high line, 90.5 wins.
Feels a little high. I'll take the under because the injury bug's already got them. And this rotation's going to need some time to figure it out. But they also have Juan Soto, still a postseason team. It's just one of those teams that feel like maybe they'll hit their stride around June instead of right away.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. Looking at their lineup first, it's going to break. Lindor and Soto at the top of the lineup is a premier combo in the game. Plus Alonso, Nimmo, and Vientos, all plus bats, should be. No Francisco Alvarez to start year does make the lineup look a little bit worse. So Luis Torrens, uh, it's not a shout out because I'm saying he's kind of bad, but at least you're in the roster, I guess. Beatty and Acuna should completely take over that McNeil spot by the end of the year, even though McNeil is already out to start the year. So that platoon of Beatty and Acuna is going to start the year. The rotation is very, very dicey with so many injuries. Encouraging springs from Clay Holmes and Griffin Canning help the outlook a little bit. But Kodai Senga's coming off of a year where I believe he only started 1 or 2 games. So I'm curious to see how his workload looks. McGill and David Peterson have started games for this Mets team for about 8 years now at this point, have some solid experience, but I would not rely on them. Paul Blackburn's another option for them as well too, but Manaya and Montas are out, and that's going to hurt them for at least the first couple of months of the season. If one more guy goes down, I would expect the Sprout Goat to come up and take a spot, and that would be exciting if they need, a little shot in the arm, so to speak, for a metaphorical shot in the arm, not a literal shot in the arm. I don't condone PEDs, but if he comes up, that would help. The bullpen should be above average as well, too. Lots of solid middle guys with Edwin Diaz hopefully returning to his lockdown form in the back end. But I do take the under. I think the starting rotation isn't good enough to make up for how good that Mets lineup is. Next up, the Philadelphia Phillies, who have the second highest line in baseball, I believe, at 91.5.
Yeah, a little high, and I'm still taking the over and running with it. One of the best rotations in baseball adds Jesus Luzardo, and it's basically the same lineup that just won 95 games. I like Max Kepler. If you don't have that horrible start that they've had the past couple of years, they're going to be completely fine. I know we were talking about them as possibly number one in the power rankings last year.
Yeah. And I think it's so easy to take the over with this team because we pretty much know exactly what it is. This lineup has been pretty much the exact same thing for 3 straight years at this point. They added Kepler, but it's not like, he's going to be a make or break guy in their lineup. It's going to be a top tier lineup for sure. The starting pitching is also going to be a huge strength. Likely no Ranger to start season, but he's an out long, hopefully. Wheeler and Nola, if there's a definition of what you're going to get, it's going to be those 2 guys. Christopher Sanchez, still one of the most underrated arms in the game. And they added Jesus Luzardo, who has had flashes of ace stuff in the past with the A's and the Marlins. The bullpen is definitely is the worst part of their team, but it's not a bad group either. Fangraphs currently has Romano as their closer. I don't think that sticks the whole year, and I think it ends up going to Kirk Curring at some point. Alvarado and Strom are a deadly lefty duo. But outside of those 4, spots are going to be earned for the rest of the guys. And I think we'll see probably some trades at the deadline to get a guy or 2. And maybe if they don't want to start Andrew Painter, maybe they put him in the bullpen at some point as well, too, and utilize some of the velo he has. So I'll take the over pretty comfortably as well, too. This Phillies team, unless they take injury, I don't think we're going to see them lose that many games. So over 91.5. Moving to the Washington Nationals, the last team in the NL East, and it's at 72.5.
All of the guys from the former number 1 farm system in baseball are up now. There's really no more excuses left, and that's why I'm going to take the over here. Why can't these guys improve by another couple games? Full seasons of Cruz, Wood, Abrams, even more. I'm okay with it. Pitching staff has let us down a little bit over the years, but Mackenzie Gore, Josiah Gray are going to be there for another couple of years. Why not? Over 72, not a lot and a half.
Yeah. No. A plus for the lineup, I think. I think the young guys definitely have a chance to make it a fun team. Abrams, Cruz, Wood, and Luis Garcia are all still under 25. Somehow Luis Garcia is still under 25, even in his 7th year in the big leagues. They added Josh Bell and Nathaniel Lau, Paul DeYoung as well, too, as solid vets, and I think they should contribute well. The rotation is a big time sleeper, I think, as well too. Gore, Irvin, Mitchell Parker, all super nasty, and Michael Soroka, I think, could be back after having an interesting spring stuff wise. Maybe the results weren't there, but you're trying stuff out in spring, and I think the results will be there for him once we get to the regular season. Trevor Williams still has a spot in this rotation, but I expect a guy like DJ Hurts to take some of that at some point. But the bullpen it's ridiculous. Outside of Kyle Finnegan, there's not one guy I think should be on a big league roster. It's going to be the biggest fault of their team for sure. And I think this team outside of the bullpen improves. I think we see good seasons from some of the guys in the lineup in the rotation. But with the NL East getting better and the bullpen being this bad, I think they're going to lose a lot of games late, and that could be very discouraging. So I'm going to go the under on this, even though I'm really pulling for this Nats team to have a good year. Moving to the Central, the Chicago Cubs already have 2 losses, but the line's at 85.5 for wins. What do you think there?
I'm still going to take the over for the Cubs. Like you said, it's 0-2, but it is the Dodgers in a different country. So I'm not going to freak out over that one. They add Kyle Tucker. They add some more youngins to an already 83-win team. And not that common sense happens a lot in the NL Central these days, but I think the math definitely adds up for the Cubbies here to take over.
Yeah, they should have their best individual offensive season since MVP Bryant and Kyle Tucker this year. They already had tons of proven guys like Happ, Suzuki, Swanson, and Horder in the lineup. Bush, Shaw, and PCA, exciting young guys that could be really good. The rotation is solid, but not super deep. Boyd and Ray at the back end, as well as Ben Brown, who pitched today for them actually in their spring training game. Don't overly excite me, but should be serviceable. Steele, Tyon, and Shota look good to be their top 3, with decent options outside of Brown like Jordan Wicks, Caleb Killian, and Horton as well too. Potentially guys that come up for them. The bullpen is really deep, and I think could be a strength of their team. Presley, Brazier, Thiabar, and Brad Keller were guys that they added. Definitely point emphasis for them this year. And that surrounds Porter Hodge, Nate Pearson, and Julian Merriweather, who are pretty underrated names who could be pretty damn nasty for them this year. So I'm going to take the over. 160 games to win at least 86. Yeah, I think they do it. This Cubs team is pretty good. Next up, the Cincinnati Reds, which their biggest addition perhaps being their manager and Terry Francona at 78.5 wins.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over here. I don't think this is necessarily the year, but with Mr. Francona, you got to go 500. They're going to try really hard, and they were so banged up last year. A lot of guys coming back. I think they're going to be more prepared this time around. Maybe some more trades too. I don't think they finish last like so many of these projections I've seen have them. I think that's a little ridiculous. I think they're more of a 500 team.
Yeah. Health, big question, of course, like it is for many teams. But this one even more with one of our favorites, Matthew McClain, and Foothill alum T.J. Friedel, who had a really good season in 2023. If those guys are healthy, it makes everything better. They added some serviceable guys in Gavin Lux, Austin Hayes, and Jose Trevino. Hopefully good years from CES and Candelario as they could bounce back. And EDLC, Ellie De La Cruz, could be ready for MVP level play if he strikes out a bit less. The rotation is a sleeper as well, too. Green, Singer, Ladello, Martinez is a very good front 4. Carson Spears is a 5 as of right now, but Abbott and Lauder are hopefully back soon to take that spot. The bullpen is probably the worst part of this team. Alexis Diaz is out to start the season, but even he struggled in 2024. I think they have 5, 6th inning guys, but no one I can really trust in the back end. So I think that limits this team in a playoff sense. But in a regular season sense, I think they get at least 79 wins. So I'll take the over there. Next up, looking at Milwaukee at 83.5 wins.
You know I'm going over on Milwaukee again. I just think they're still a much better team than Cincinnati all around. The Brewers are still really good. There's going to be some new faces on the pitching staff. Bullpen is been a big topic for you today. I'm sure you'll get into that. But other than that, it is the same exact strategy on this team. I think there's too much star power in this lineup to drop them down under 500. They're coming off a 90-win season. I don't think the drop-off is going to be that bad.
This Brewers team I really like. And it seems like back-to-back years now, or maybe even three in a row, that it feels like a pretty easy pick to take the over. The lineup is super underrated, and the defense is top tier. Chiriot, Yelich, and Contreras as a top three is a sleeper, like perhaps best trio in the entire MLB. Garrett Mitchell, Rhys Hoskins are solid middle of the order guys. Terang, Ortiz, Frelick, all great with the glove. But if they can hit, watch out, because this team is going to be ready to go for sure. The rotation, probably the biggest question mark on the team. Freddie Peralta, Nestor Cortez, kind of sound like Freddie Cortez was its own person. Yeah. But Jose Quintana, all three of those guys you pretty much know what you have there. Savalier has been inconsistent at times, and Tyler Alexander is not a starter. But luckily for them, Ashby, D.L. Hall, Tobias Myers, and Brendan Woodruff should all come back at some point. So they'll have those guys hopefully. And the bullpen is ridiculously disgusting. McGill, Koenig, Payamps, Hudson, Uribe, and Perguero all got it. Nick Mears hopefully back soon. Saw that on Fangraphs he's been hurt, or not hurt, but sick since like the middle of March. So hopefully he's feeling good at some point, because he could be a nasty guy. But the farm system also pretty notable. It's the only team I actually noted their farm system on. But I'm taking the over. I still think this is the best team in the Central, and they get disrespected every single year in these win totals. Next up, the Pittsburgh Pirates at 77.5 wins.
This is another one of those teams I'm done sticking up for, because the Pirates lineup just sucks. So I'm taking the under. Skeens may very well be a 20-game winner, but Jerry Jones is already hurt. The timeline just doesn't add up here. I think they get a little worse.
Yeah, the lineup is really, really rough. Outside of Brian Reynolds and Oniel Cruz, it's going to be a lot of, does this guy, have some MLB chance in him, or is he another bust? Because it seems like it's gone that way for all of the guys that they've brought up offensively in the past couple of years. They did trade for Spencer Horwitz, but he is hurt, I believe, with a broken wrist. Hopefully he's back in a month or two. At the start of spring training, I thought this rotation was going to be amazing. Skeens, Jared Jones, Bubba Chandler, all these dudes. Jared Jones is hurt. I have Please Don't Need Tommy John as my note for him. Bubba Chandler, Braxton Ashcraft, Thomas Harrington are all good prospects, but they, for some reason, didn't want to put them in their starting rotation. So they have Modleski, who is going to be a starter for them, Bailey Falter, and Andrew Heaney. So hopefully all three of those guys will be gone at some point. And Chandler, Ashcraft, and Harrington take those spots. Jared Jones as well, too. Hopefully he's healthy. Johan Oviedo, very nasty, to support the best pitcher in baseball in Paul Skeens. The bullpen, I don't like at all. Bednar is their closer still after having a ERA in the mid-fives last year. Outside of Colin Holderman and Dennis Santana, I don't love their middle relief guys as well, too. So I'll take the under. This team is not going to score enough wins to be a 500 squad, or even win 78 games, that is. So under 77.5. Next up, last team in the Central is the St. Louis Cardinals at 76.5, the lowest line in the division.
This was a tough one because the Cardinals haven't really showed us their hand yet. We don't really know what they're going to do, and they may not have decided that yet, because last year they went over 500. It was a little bit of a shock. But I'm going to say that we finally get the fire sale in St. Louis. I'm going to say under. Some very nice prospects, of course, that could turn this thing around quicker, but you still have to trade Arenado, most likely. Some of those pitchers, Fetty, Sonny Gray, possibly. I don't know if going over or trying to win is the right decision necessarily, but they may shock us and go for it again like last year.
This team is very interesting because it's probably the most similar year-to-year roster that we've seen out of any team in the MLB. if guys stay healthy in the lineup, it could be a decent group, but I don't think we're looking at like a top 10 at best. I think we're looking at in between like 15 to 18 would be my guess. The rotation is also the exact same as last year. Gray and Fetty are solid. Palante showed some promise in 24, but Miles Mikolas absolutely sucks, and they're still starting him. And Liberatore was a top prospect at some point, but I don't know if he has the ability to still be a good starter. The bullpen also did not change much. They added, or not they added, they have a top-tier closer in Ryan Helsley, but outside of that, the group really isn't great. So I'm going to take the under 76.5. I think this is one of the most boring teams in the league in my eyes. On the NL West, and it could be perhaps the most fun division, even with the Dodgers probably running away with it. Arizona Diamondbacks is a team we'll start with at 86.5 wins.
I'm going over. Why not? In what this regime would probably consider a down year, they won 89 games. And while everybody outside of the Dodgers got worse, Corbin Burns would be a massive part of the success here with the Jordan Montgomery news today. I don't see any problems with the lineup. Josh Naylor's a pretty cool fit there. And they should keep mashing homers and scoring runs, and hopefully the rotation eventually gets better.
Yeah, it seems really good. The lineup's going to rake. Josh Naylor's going to replace Walker just fine. Corbin Carroll looks healthy, which is a huge plus. Marte is a perennial MVP candidate at this point. Gurriel, Suarez, McCarthy, all solid bats. Gabby Moreno looks solid. Perdomo, if he doesn't work well, even though they gave him an extension, Jordan Lawler's pretty much waiting to come up at some point. And the Pavin Smith, Randall Grichuk platoon is pretty solid as well, too, replacing Jock Peterson. The rotation is very good in my eyes. Gallen, Kelly, Fott, Erod, and Corbin Burns should make for a top 3 to 5 rotation in baseball. Ryan Nelson and Dre Jamison are guys, if one of those 5 get hurt, can slide in very easily as well, too. The bullpen looks good, even though it hurt them last year. I think Puck, Martinez, Ginkel, Thompson, Mantiply are all solid arms. They've succeeded in high leverage spots in the past in the big leagues. I think they could be really good this year as well, too. So I'm taking the over for the Diamondbacks. Going to be a very fun team to watch this year. Next up is the Dodgers at a staggering 103.5 wins.
Yeah, I'm going to go under that line. I still think they're capable of anything, but they've had their fair share of injuries too most years. And we saw this last year. They're more of that steady 100-win team than they are a big win streak team. 98 last year. Maybe they get to 100 this year. I want to know what's going on with Mookie Betts. Feel bad for him. He can't keep his food down like 2 weeks after getting sick. That's horrible. But I wouldn't worry about the Dodgers. I'm just taking the under because it's a scary number.
Yeah, the lineup is still ridiculous. Shohei and Freddie, even without Mookie at the top to start the year, maybe is a great start. Hopefully, Mookie gets healthy soon and puts some weight back on, because that is a super scary situation for him. But after those guys, they have run producers in Teo, Muncy, and Will Smith behind them. And then back end, Conforto, Edman, Kike, all solid hitters to round out the lineup. The rotation is the best in baseball, with Snell, Yamamoto, and Glasnow all having the ability to compete for the Cy Young. Roki, I think, can have some growing pains, but is still a plus arm. Dustin May takes the 5 spot potentially, but if he doesn't perform, you're out, and you're getting Kershaw in, or you're getting Gonsolin in, or you're getting one of the dudes in AAA in. Once those guys are healthy as well, too. The bullpen is has the best back end in baseball, and Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, and Blake Trinan. Alex Garcia and Anthony Banda are some good options in middle relief as well, too. Michael Kopech, Evan Phillips hurt, so maybe they come back as well at some point, along with Bruce Stark-Gratterall. The line is just so high that it makes it so tough to take. And when you're likely going to win your division by 10 wins, even with how good the Diamondbacks should be this year, I don't think they're going to push it if they clinch the division and there's 10 games left and they're at 97 wins or something like that. I still think this is a 100-win team, but to go get 107, 108 with how conservative this team is going to be this year with pitchers in my eyes, I'm going to take the under. but still probably the number one seed, as we'll see here in a little bit. The Colorado Rockies, 58.5 wins.
I'm going under again. They projected to have less WAR than the White Sox and the Marlins, and now you trade Nolan Jones. And it was for my guy Tyler Freeman, but he works best as a role player. So I'm really not sure what's going on in Colorado. You really couldn't grab one of their relievers. That seems a little ridiculous to me. Even a AAA guy would be the best guy in their bullpen. Yeah, not too high on Colorado, man. But obviously Tovar and Britton Doyle are pretty fun to watch.
Yeah. The lineup could be fun. Britton Doyle, Ezekiel Tovar, like you said, are studs. Toglia, McMahon both have 30 homer power. Chris Bryant's still there, so if he wants to play more than 40 games, he could be decent, I guess. Jordan Beck and Zach Veen could be some fun young guys once they get their opportunity. But the pitching is terrible. The rotation is ridiculously bad. I don't expect a single guy to have under a 4.5 ERA. Maybe Dollander, once he's up, he should be exciting to watch. But I'm curious to see how his stuff plays in Coors because it's always going to be worse. And the bullpen has a lot of unrecognizable names, even for baseball fans. I do think there's 4 guys that could be solid. Seth Halverson, Tyler Kinley, Peralta, and Jimmy Herget all could work. But even those guys might have terrible seasons. So I don't really know. They just kind of said, fuck it with the bullpen. Just throw anyone out there. It's going to be a bad result anyways. So I'm going to take the under 58.5. But expect some high-scoring games happening at Coors this year, as you always should.
Yes.
The San Diego Padres, the next one at 85.5 wins.
I'm going to take a slight under with the Padres because I don't think they're happy with the current roster right now. We know they love to wheel and deal a couple weeks into the season, so things can change, but I can't take the over if they're about to dismantle the rotation again. Plus they lose Profar and Kim. And slightly under 85, not a playoff team.
Yeah, lineup's kind of ugly. Like you said, a couple of big losses there. I still like their core of Arias, Tatis, Merrill, Machado, Cronenworth, and Bogarts. But the Sheets, Hayward, Diaz in your back end of your lineup is a big drop from 2024. Maybe Yuli Gurriel and Jose Iglesias get in there at some point as starters, but who knows? The rotation, I think, is also thin. The top 3 is good, with King and Cease being legitimate aces and Pivetta being the perfect description of a 3-starter. But Randy Vasquez and Kyle Hart are both guys that maybe should be making spot starts for you, not mainstays in your rotation. I do understand that this is mostly because of injury. Darvish, Musgrove, and Matt Waldron are all hurt at some. And I think we're going to see Darvish and Musgrove pretty much out the whole year, but Matt Waldron should be back at some point, which is big. The bullpen, I think, is a strength. Has at least five arms, I would say, that are plus, even without Tanner Scott, and should be the biggest strength of their team. But I'm still saying the under for this. I think they lost too much. The division besides them, I think, got better. So 83, 84 wins, I think, is completely reasonable for them. So under 85.5. Last team for us making it through here, but we're not close to being done with this episode. The San Francisco Giants, now the closest team to us geographically, 80.5 wins.
I'm going under again with the Giants. I think San Francisco gets bullied in this division this year. It's another team with so many injuries already, and it's a matter of time until Robbie Ray and Verlander join that list. It's over right there as soon as that happens, and it's bound to happen.
I will say I do like the lineup. There's not really a single weakness, and now they have 2 stars in Willie Adames and Matt Chapman. Jung-Hoo Lee, Elliot Ramos, and Patrick Bailey all have all-star potential. I'm not saying they all get there, but I think there's a world where all 3 of those guys have all-star seasons. Solid vets in Lamont Wade, Wilmer Flores, and Mike Yastrzemski, and Tyler Fitzgerald. I would not expect him to be as good, but still maybe a potential average bat with great speed there. The rotation, I'm really not too sure about. Logan Webb, I am sure about. We know exactly what he is. And Jordan Hicks, I think we know, is a 3-4 starter now at this point. But this hinges on Justin Verlander and Robbie Ray. These are 2 dudes that have had injury-riddled seasons in the past 3 years. and they're starting to get up there in age as well too. Verlander's like 42 years old, so potentially could hurt them there. If those two guys go out, Birdsong and Harrison do slide into the rotation, and Raup as well too, who got the 5 spot on opening day. Will all be starting games for them. The bullpen, I do think, is a huge strength of their team, though. Brian Walker is nasty and a reliever of the year candidate, and there's probably the most diverse arm-wise pen in the league with Rogers, Duvall, Miller, Lou Trevino, our old friend, and Randy Rodriguez, all being guys that should be making their opening day roster. So I'll take the over. I don't think this is like a playoff team, but I think 500 to 85 wins is completely reasonable for them. So there's our over-under for all 30 teams. We're already probably about an hour into this one, and we're getting into the awards now. Starting off with the big ones, AL MVP, third place. Who is it?
I'm going Vladdy Jr. He's got a lot of money on the line this offseason, and I think he's going to show us why he deserves that.
You might love me for this one. You might hate me for this one. I'm going Lawrence Butler as my number third one. I think there's a chance he has a 40-40 season. What he did last year was pretty ridiculous. He hits the ball hard. He's got good speed. Improved on defense this offseason as well, too. And he really badly wants to win. Playing in a ballpark that suits his strengths, I think we see Lawrence Butler go off this year, and a third place finish in the AL MVP is completely reasonable. Number 2.
Well, I couldn't not put Aaron Judge on here, so I'm sorry, no sleeper picks. Aaron Judge, as long as he's healthy, I think he's going to be on this list in the American League. I don't think we've ever seen right-handed power like this in our lifetime. Probably the steroid era was the last time, and this is a first-ballot Hall of Famer, possibly still in his prime, with the bat at least. I think he's got a couple more good ones in for him.
Yeah, my runner-up is also Aaron Judge. This could be a 60-homer season again. This is the best bat in baseball. Don't get it twisted. But there's just one guy in the AL who stands out above him. I think we have the same guy here. Your AL MVP is?
It's Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals. We talk about it all the time. You know, you don't have to win this award. We've seen Mike Trout win it so many times. But I think if Kansas City does win their division, it's going to all come down to Bobby Witt Jr. How does he look? What's the WAR? Do we have a Mike Trout type season? Like you said, is he stealing bags? Is he winning the Platinum Glove? We'll see. We'll see. But that's his potential, and that's why I have to pick him.
The ultimate 5-tool player in baseball right now, Bobby Witt Jr. is my AL MVP as well, too. I think we, at the end of the season, could look at Bobby Witt having one of the greatest historical season WAR-wise for just how good he is defensively, as a base runner, and as a pure hitter as well, too. Like, he could hit 330 and go 40-40. And that, you just don't see guys like that happen in the big leagues. We saw it with Mike Trout, even though he didn't get to those numbers. But Acuna, I think, was really close a couple years ago to hitting 330 as well, too, or if he didn't get it. But Bobby Witt is my AL MVP. He could have a 12 or 13 WAR season, which is absurd. NL MVP, third place finisher.
I got Juan Soto here. And sometimes for these awards, I like to take a step back from the numbers for a little bit, think about the person. And I don't think it's crazy to think that Juan Soto had a lot on his mind. He knew that his contract was up. He was changing teams a couple different times. Now he's got a home. He's paid. He's got a spot. I think he's going to love it in New York again for the Mets and crush it.
Yeah. My third place finisher, maybe a bit of a sleeper. I have Jackson Merrill here. Put up 5.7 WAR in his rookie season. I think we only see him get better defensively, and I think we see that bat progress to the next level. Biggest thing with him last year is he was a bit impatient, got a little swing happy, only walked 4.7% of the time, I think. I think that goes up. I think the K rate goes down, more contact, more hard contact. Jackson Merrill probably goes 30-30 with solid defense in center field, playing for a Padres team that needs him to play well. The runner-up in the NL is who?
I don't know if this is actually going to be a sleeper or a shock or anything, but I have Paul Skeens in the 2 spot. We talked about it a little bit last week. we haven't really seen numbers like this since DeGrom. We haven't seen a guy his age with numbers like that since Roger Clemens. I think this is one of a kind with Paul Skeens, and it's going to be time to start putting him on these lists soon.
Completely valid. I went with Juan Soto as my runner-up. Potential 40, 50 homer season with his ridiculous on-base numbers. We know he's pretty much pure hitter. Modern-day Ted Williams is what some people like to say. So we're not going to see him, get a Gold Glove or anything like that. But the bat alone could get him a runner-up spot in the MVP race, and that's just tells you how damn good he is. And the NL MVP, is it the guy who's won it a billion times already?
Yes. Yeah, I feel like I would be a fool to not take Shohei Ohtani here, even though we did pick the top two odds getters so far. They're definitely onto something because there is no one quite like Shohei Ohtani. I heard he's even getting ready to pitch soon, too, which, like we talked about, too, with the other lists, ranking guys' future. Shohei doesn't even need to pitch to get my vote for this. And if he does, it's unanimous.
Yeah. In a sport that has less voter fatigue than any other sport, I'd say in these major awards, Shohei Ohtani is like a layup to win this if he stays healthy. The P pitches, his stuff has always been so nasty. I'd expect him to be in the threes ERA, strike out over 9 guys per 9 innings, and just fit in really well as a pitcher on that Dodgers staff. The bat, I mean, we know exactly what it is. So yeah, I didn't even mention him as a pitcher for the Dodgers this year in what I was talking about because you don't even really think about it so much. And I don't think the Dodgers are going to be like, oh, we need to get Shohei back so he can start this week. Like they're not going to be pushing for that. If he gets 100 innings, I'd be shocked. Like I don't think they're going to go crazy with him. But that bat in there every single day is what they need. And if that bat's in there and he does what he does, he's going to win MVP again pretty easily.
Do you think they should turn him into a closer before we move on? I just thought of this.
I don't know exactly how that would work, like lineup wise. Like
you're right. If he's DH, it'd be weird. Yeah.
Because then they have to take out the DH, but there's also the Shohei Ohtani rule, which they added, but I don't know exactly what that means. Closer would be fun, though. I think that could be a viable option for them if he continues to have some injury struggles as a pitcher. Looking at the Cy Young now on the AL side, the third place finisher, who do you have here?
I'm going Garrett Crochet. I kind of want to see a little more. He's kind of new to this role, right? Being the ace on a good team, but I'm excited and I expect very big things from him.
I have Logan Gilbert as my number 3, one of our guys for sure. I think he has a big season in Seattle, 200 innings, under 3.233 ERA, 200 Ks. Modern day workhorse, Logan Gilbert. Number 2, the runner-up.
Yeah, I think we may have flip-flopped that. I'm going Gilbert number 2. I think us specifically are going to find out on opening day that exactly like you said, this is the next big-time workhorse in the American League.
My runner-up is going to be Tariq Skubal. Maybe a bit of a shocker here. Really good last year. I think he has another great season this year. But there's just one guy I have above him. And your Cy Young is?
My Cy Young, I'm going Skubal back-to-back. We talked about it with Shohei. Sometimes we trick ourselves. Skubal's coming off the Triple Crown, and he didn't even throw that many innings last year. So why can't he do it again?
My AL Cy Young, full season as a starter, Garrett Crochet is going to walk away with this award. He is the most difficult at-bat in the American League right now. He struck out pretty much everybody he faced in spring training. I believe his K rate was at like 50-something%. There's a chance he gets to 40% through the regular season. That would lock up the Cy Young for sure. I think we're looking at a guy with a low 2 ERA. Gets better with the Boston Red Sox pitching lab, moving away from what the White Sox were doing with him, and even that was working. He's so nasty. If he stays healthy, I think he's a lock for the Cy Young. Looking at the NL side now, who is your third place finisher here?
Similar strategy. I don't care about the age. I'm keeping Chris Sale because everyone knows they're down a couple starters. He's got to be a workhorse again. Maybe not another Triple Crown, but I still like another season of Chris Sale.
My third place finisher is a guy who seems to be the perennial third place finisher. It's Zach Wheeler, who I have. Uh, we know exactly what we're going to get from him: 200 innings, low threes ERA, and if he's pitching on one of the best teams in the National League, I think that only boosts his odds. The runner-up.
I'm gambling with the new Dodger Blake Snell on this one. No pressure at all pitching for the Dodgers. The complete opposite situation of what he had last season, where I think he was thinking a little too much. That's why he had that bad first start. Just get rid of that, and bam, you got a top 5 ERA, top 5 in strikeouts, top 5 in innings. Stay healthy, and he's got it.
My runner-up is also Blake Snell. I disagree with you a little bit on the innings part. I don't think they're going to extend him like ridiculously, and he's never really been a guy to go 7-2 often, but we're going to see a lot of 5 or 6 inning shutout from him with 10 or 12 Ks. Like, that's just how he operates. I wouldn't be shocked if we see 150 innings with 250 strikeouts and an ERA in the low 2s or even the high 1s. Like, it's possible with Blake Snell with how damn good he is. But there's just one guy who has it all. And he's going to be, I assume both are number 1s for the Cy Young, considering he was your number 2 in the NL MVP.
Yeah, that was the one bad part about putting him in there was you would know immediately who my National League Cy Young winner would be. That's Paul Skeens. I don't have much more to add on to what I already said. He's pretty ridiculous for a 22-year-old, right?
Yeah, Paul Skeens easily my NL Cy Young. Could get 200 to 220 innings in there, maybe approaching 300 strikeouts. His line on Prize Picks for season-long ERA was 2.9 or something like that. Immediately took the under because I don't think there's a universe where if he pitches, he has an ERA over 3 or gets into the 3s even. So Paul Skeens, my Cy Young in the NL. On to the Rookie of the Year is always a fun award because we don't know. So the AL Rookie of the Year, Skyler, who do you have here? Only doing 1s for the rest of these, by the way, to the listeners out there. No top 3s.
For the American League, I'm not going to change my pick. I'm sticking with Christian Campbell of the Red Sox because I don't care where he's playing. They're going to find a spot for him. Unbelievable spring. We don't harp on those numbers, right? Mookie Betts went over 19 or whatever the year he won MVP. But for the young guys, it's very encouraging.
Yeah, I really like Christian Campbell. He was a guy I wanted to put in here. Jacob Wilson, another one as well, too. Mm-hmm. A guy I had in my slot here for a little bit was Will Warren. I think he has a big season for the Yankees in their rotation. But I'm going Cam Smith as my Rookie of the Year. What he's done in spring training has been amazing. There's a reason he made the team. Maybe he got a bit of Babbitt luck. I think his batting average on balls in play was like 400 or something like that. So I don't expect him to hit 320. But if he goes 20-20 and hits 260, 270, I think he'll get it. So Cam Smith is my AL Rookie of the Year. Moving to the NL side.
Yeah, I didn't think too hard about this one. I took Roki Sasaki. There's some cool names on the list for sure, but when I'm thinking about Rookie of the Year, especially recently, you're thinking about at-bats, innings pitched. Christian Campbell, Roki Sasaki are going to have all the opportunities in the world, and that's why those are my 2 picks.
Valid choice. I definitely thought about putting Roki. I'm going to go with Dylan Cruz here. I think a full season of at-bats will definitely help him in this case. I don't think we're maybe looking at 300, but we could again be looking at a guy that goes 25-25, 20-20, much like Cam Smith, and puts up some exciting plays defensively as well too. He's a super fun prospect and a guy who has the utmost potential in the world, as we saw back in his LSU days. AL Reliever of the Year, ton of good candidates in this one.
Yeah, another one that was really hard. I decided to go with Devin Williams of the Yankees. I think he may be called upon way more heavily with their rotation injuries. A little bit different from Milwaukee, but I think he'll figure it out. He'll get a bunch of saves, and, well, that's what they love to pick here for Reliever of the Year.
Yeah. It was pretty much in between Devin Williams and Mason Miller for me. And I knew if Devin Williams and Mason Miller had the exact same year, the award would go for Devin Williams. So that's who I chose. It's just the market how it is. If you're playing New York, you're going to get a lot more looks. So Devin Williams is my reliever of the year in the AL. On to the NL side.
Yeah, similar strategy. I'm going Tanner Scott. Might not have the best odds, but LA can use him like their own Josh Hader if they want. Any situation where a top lefty comes up, he's going to have a lot of appearances. And I'm pretty sure he's still going to be the closer. We'll see things like that change all the time, but very great couple of seasons for Tanner Scott. Now he gets to play on prime time.
Yeah. I don't think the NL side is as star-studded as the AL. So my NL reliever of the year, even I'm not like trying to knock him down because there's some better relievers in the AL, but I'm going with Ryan Walker, one of my guys. I've said this in the past. One of the most difficult, if not the most difficult at bat in the MLB with how he throws in his slot and just to break his pitches, get as well too, running it up to the upper 90s. I think he's impossible to face. I think we could see ERA in the ones, 100 strikeouts in 60-something innings or whatever. Like, Brian Walker is my NL reliever of the year. He's so damn good. AL manager of the year.
I'm going Alex Cora of the Red Sox. I think my strategy is usually if it's your first time winning the division in a couple of years, that manager will grab that spot. It was Stephen Vogt last year. I'm going Cora this year.
I'll go Mark Kotsay. I don't think the A's make the playoffs, as I kind of just spoiled what the playoff seedings were, but I think they're really close. And that's not because the A's don't perform. I think it's because of some of the other teams in the AL just being a bit farther along than the A's. But Mark Kotsay, what he's done with his team deserves some respect. I believe it is like third or fourth in AL Manager of the Year voting last year with 69 wins.
Yeah.
If they get 84, 82, like he's going to get that award pretty easily, I think, with how many already proven, managers have won it in the past in the AL. On to the NL side.
Yeah, based off of what you said, I think Francona is a possible option if they do win that many games. I don't have it playing out that way, so I got Craig Counsell this time with the Cubs. We talked about the Cubs a lot recently, but this is their time to shine. The math adds up. Go take it. So there's the take.
NL Manager of the Year for me is going to be Terry Francona. We'll find out if where and if I have the Reds in the playoff format. We'll see. But I think they're going to be much improved this year. And Terry Francona is going to be probably the biggest reason for all that. Fun awards here are made up awards. Breakout in the AL. Who's your AL Breakout Player of the Year?
And is it cheating to say Garrett Crochet?
I'd say he's already broken out a little bit, but if you want to put him, I think that's reasonable.
Well, I'll say what I have for Garrett Crochet. We'll see what happens after that. On our starting pitcher rankings, I said this guy hasn't earned anything yet. However, I really think he's ready to take the ace role. I don't know, man. American League Breakout. I guess you could say Lawrence Butler. He was on your MVP list.
Crochet is fine.
Okay.
That makes sense because he hasn't really had a full season yet. I was just saying, like,
I forgot I even put it until I scrolled down just now. That's why I was freezing. Like, oh shit, he's in both of our top threes, and you're winner of Cy Young.
Yeah, my AO breakout is going to be Jonathan Aranda from the Rays, their first baseman. Put up some really good numbers, batted ball wise, in his opportunities in the big leagues in the past, but the numbers just haven't quite been there. OPS wise, this year I think it comes together. Partially because of playing in a new stadium and playing in a park that has a short porch and not one of Tropicana's where it's one of the hardest stadiums like score-wise to score runs. So I think Jonathan Aranda has a good year for the Rays and has a breakout season there. What about on the NL side?
Paul Skeens. No, I'm just kidding. It's AJ Smith-Shawver, Atlanta. I wanted someone that was still eligible for Rookie of the Year here because of my Crochet pick, of course, may have been cheating. He just made the Braves rotation. He's got way more big game experience than most 22-year-old pitchers. Atlanta really needs him to stick in that rotation. I say he's their guy.
My NL Breakout battled injury in the past, but we know the prospect that he was when he was coming up. I'm going with Max Meyer. I think he has a big year for Miami. His slider's nasty. I believe he added a sweeper as well too. Fastball looks good. I think he has a good year, and if he's healthy, could sport a mid threes to low threes ERA. Now on the bus side, which we're not like preying on people's downfall, but there's people like this every single year. So AL bus, Skyler, who do you have?
I'm going to go with Julio Rodriguez, a guy who you really like. There's always going to be a spot for him. Don't get me wrong about that part. He plays good defense. He's probably going to steal 20 bags for a long time. But I don't like where this is heading. Throughout the years, we've seen less power, more strikeouts, more injuries. He doesn't hit the ball as hard. I think he's chasing that fantastic rookie season. And J-Rod just hasn't done enough for them to win more games.
No, get it. My AL bust is going to be Matt Wallner. Posted an 895 OPS last year, but had a 36.5 strikeout rate, which is ridiculously high. I think we see those numbers really dip because of that strikeout rate this year. Will he hit 30 homers? Potentially, but he's probably going to have to hit 180 the entire year or something like that. I think we could see him go down to AAA because of these strikeout numbers. Mashed fastballs last year, was really bad on sliders, and I think we see more sliders for him this year because when you can't hit it, pitchers are going to adjust, and I think we've seen a big adjustment from pitchers in the AL this year, or pitchers in general against Matt Wallner. On to the NL side.
I'm going Jung-Hoo Lee of the Giants. I think Kyle Harrison could have been a candidate before we knew he was going to AAA because he needs to fix some things, obviously. But I don't think Jung-Hoo Lee is really a center fielder. He also doesn't have a lot of speed or power for a guy with negative defensive metrics. I don't necessarily think we're going to Masataka Yoshida level, but I don't like what the Giants look like. I don't like it.
Yeah. My NL bust is going to be Mark Vientos, and Mets fans will probably hate hearing that. But he had very similar problems to Wallner last year. Very high BABIP, which shows that there's some luck involved. Strikeout rate was pretty high, especially in the second half. And I believe he just destroyed fastballs. Like his run value of fastballs, I looked it up today, was at 13, which is super, super high and a lot lower than he's just going to get sliders and stuff this entire year and swing and miss. Pitchers are going to adjust. We see this pretty often with second-year players. They have a good rookie season. In the offseason, other teams look, and they realize there's holes in these guys' approach or whatever, and they go out after it, and you're going to have to make the adjustment again. I think Vientos has a rough year this year. Maybe the power's still there. I know Alex was begging me to take his RBI line or something like that, which I wouldn't bite on. And this is it. I think Vientos struggles a bit this year. Which takes us to the playoff seeding. Maybe we could go a bit quicker through this one because we've already talked about every team. So give me your 1 through 6 in the American League.
All right. Starting it off, we got Boston at the 1, the Texas Rangers 2, Kansas City wins the division at number 3, and my wild card teams are going to be the O's, the Yankees, and Cleveland beats out Houston.
My 1 seed wins the AL East. It's the New York Yankees. The 2 seed is the Texas Rangers. The 3 seed is the Kansas City Royals. So we're same 2 and 3. 4 seeded is the Mariners. 5 seeded is the Red Sox, and 6 seeded is the Houston Astros. Cannot pull for the good guys and the Guardians or the A's or something like that. National League, who do you have?
We'll start off with the Dodgers, of course. Right behind them, Philadelphia, and I have the Cubs winning the Central. My 3 wildcard teams, Arizona, the Mets, and Atlanta squeaks past Milwaukee.
My 6 teams, the number 1 is the Dodgers, of course. The number 2 is the Phillies. The number 3 is the Brewers. Number 4 is the Diamondbacks. Number 5, the Mets. And number 6, the Braves sneak in. Which takes us to our playoff predictions. which is a fun time of the episode to be talking playoffs in late March. So starting with the AL wildcard, 6 versus 3, who do you have there, and who's winning that?
I have Kansas City hosting Cleveland. I think Kansas City gets them back. I have them winning the division. That's kind of my theme in the AL. I guess I gave it away with how I structured it. I think Kansas City is going to be a little better than Cleveland.
I also have Kansas City hosting a team, but for me, it's the Astros. Kansas City's starting staff, I think, makes this all the difference. And an MVP season from Bobby Witt is definitely going to help. So I have Kansas City moving on as the 3 seed. How about 5 versus 4 in the AL?
Great AL East matchup. Baltimore hosting the Yankees in this one. I kind of hinted at it earlier. I'm not as afraid of Baltimore's rotation, especially when we get to October and Baltimore should be a little healthier. I think they should beat the Yankees. Just not their year this year.
5 versus 4 for me is the Seattle Mariners hosting the Boston Red Sox. And I have the 5 seed of Boston Red Sox taking these series. Crochet and Houck at the top, I think, match what the Mariners have, even though the Mariners are obviously a really good rotation and the lineup's a lot better for Boston than it is in Seattle. On the NL side, 6 versus 3.
I got the Cubs hosting Atlanta, and the Cubs are going to choke this one. Atlanta, like I said, I might be taking the under, but once these guys are at full strength, they could beat anybody.
I have Milwaukee hosting the Braves, and I think Milwaukee chokes this one too. I take the Braves, the 6th seed, to move on. How about your 5 versus 4 in the NL?
Arizona hosting the Mets should be fireworks, but I am going to take the Mets to get this possible upset series win in just their first year in the Juan Soto era.
I have the same matchup, Arizona hosting the Mets, but I have the Diamondbacks getting this victory here and moving on to the ALDS. So in the NLDS, yes. They won't move on to the ALDS. But in the ALDS, which was leading to my next point, 2-seeded who versus a 3-seeded Kansas City team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Rangers versus Kansas City, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be Texas. I'm going to have Kansas City winning this one. We talk about great defense, great pitching. Maybe could add another guy in the bullpen. We'll see. But as of right now, I think Kansas City has a clear advantage over not just the Central teams, but also the other teams in the American League.
Yeah, same matchup for me. Kansas City versus 2-seeded Texas. And I also have Kansas City get into the ALCS. Maybe it's luck of the draw, but they have a pretty good avenue here to get into the ALCS. And I think their team matches up well with Texas. So I'll take the Royals moving on to the championship series for the first time since 16 or something, whatever year it was, 15. On to the 1-seeded Boston Red Sox for you versus who, and who's winning that?
They're playing Baltimore, another rivalry here, and I'm not really sure how this would play out, but Boston's my 1 seed, so I decided to take them. They're not getting bounced in their first series. Boston over Baltimore.
You said a rivalry. I have the rivalry in my ALDS. It's the Yankees versus the Red Sox, and the 1-seeded Yankees go down to the 5-seeded Red Sox as they move to an ALCS. We have the same ALCS with the Royals and the Red Sox, which we'll get back to in a second. As we do the NLDS side, as I believe we both have Philly versus Atlanta in this 2-6 matchup.
Yeah, more East teams, right? Can't get enough of them. I think I'm going to go with Philly here. Philly's a team you can rely on because it's the same guys out there all the time. It's a really tough place to play. And I think Philly deserves another shot at the Dodgers.
We've seen this matchup before. We've seen it multiple times before in the playoffs. And I think Philly gets them again. It's just their weakness in the playoffs. So 2-seeded Phillies moves on to the NLCS. And now the 1-seeded Dodgers take on the Mets for you and the Diamondbacks for me.
Yeah, I mentioned that they would play the Dodgers after Philly won. This isn't a guarantee with the Mets at all. I just know what I'm going to get from the Dodgers. I'll talk more about them as we go deeper here. I have more of a monologue later on, but we'll take the Dodgers as the 1 seed over the Mets.
Yeah, 1-seeded Dodgers versus 4-seeded Diamondbacks for me. Arizona beat them a couple years ago in the playoffs. I don't think we're looking at Lance Lynn starting games for the Dodgers here. It's going to be Cy Young type guys for them. And Arizona, to be honest, probably has pretty close to the same thing if they're starting Gallen, Corbin Burns, and a Fott or whoever. But I'm going to take the Dodgers because they're the Dodgers, which sets up our ALCS matchups. Kansas City versus Boston with the trip to the World Series on the line. Skyler, who'd you choose here?
Boston's got way too much firepower in the lineup to lose a series to Kansas City. I really want to see Boston go back, kind of because we kind of called this one. We figured this would be the year they would finally get things on track, the year where you're signing players, your prospects are coming up, you're getting rid of excess things you don't need, taking up money, other than Trevor Story. He's still there. Other than that, I'm loving Boston. That's why I picked him to be the 1 seed in the American League.
So did you pick them to win this?
I did pick the Boston Red Sox to win the ALCS, yes.
My ALCS, same matchup, like I've said about 10 times already. But Boston's a 5 seed for me here, which makes things a bit more interesting. Yeah. I definitely think they repaired the bullpen at this point. There's probably 1 or 2 guys that they've added in there. Late leverage guys considering the farm system that they do have, and maybe even a starter if some of the other guys aren't healthy or whatever. And I'm going to pick Boston to win this. I think Kansas City's lineup just isn't as deep as Boston, and the Red Sox can go bar for bar when it comes to the top of the starting rotation that Kansas City usually has an advantage on. So I'll go the Red Sox, moving on to the World Series. When you said earlier for the Red Sox, you said that they're going to have a good year, but not necessarily win the pennant.
Yeah.
You fooled me. I was like, well, okay, well, I have them winning the pennant, but it turns out you do too. And then the NLCS, Philly Dodgers. Is that what we have?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Well, talk about going bar for bar. This game may go to 7, and I'm going to be forced to take the Dodgers again. It's pretty much the bullpen. We see how these National League, specifically National League postseason games go, and the Dodgers got a guy for every situation. They know when to score. They have pinch hitters, pinch runners, designated fielder, like we're playing old man softball. Dodgers are going to get back to the World Series. I don't think this run is over. What they did this offseason was different.
Yeah, I know it's baseball, and the big point with the Dodgers, creating a super team, I'm doing air quotes. Yeah. Obviously, you can't see that because we don't have a video, but you can lose, and it can happen so easily and so quick in the playoffs where you just have one bad inning in one game that causes you to blow a lead, and the next day you just feel the repercussions of it, and you're down 2-0 and you're behind the 8 ball in a series. I just can't see that happening with the Dodgers against the Phillies here. This Dodgers team is too damn good. They're too sure in every single aspect of the roster. I expect Mookie Betts to be completely fine by this point, hopefully, because if he's not, that'd be really concerning. But the Dodgers move back to the World Series, which sets up a fun matchup for both of us. Seems to happen this way all the time where we have the exact same matchup.
And we think we're so
Boston,
clever.
Exactly, yeah. Boston versus the Dodgers.
Who's
winning it, and who is getting the World Series MVP? That's another point.
Of course. Would be a great rematch. We talk about all the time, too, how baseball is won on the field, not with the checkbook. But this Dodgers team has a chance to become a legit dynasty, the first one since the Yankees. That's part of the reason I didn't want to say this earlier when talking about these wins is because I do have them winning back-to-back. I have them beating Boston in 6. I think Mookie Betts would be the perfect MVP in this series for obvious reasons. And these are 2 of the most watched teams, most powerful teams, most exciting teams. I really want a great matchup. And Boston's a lot more fun to watch than Kansas City. The Dodgers are a little bit more fun to watch than the Phillies that are also very exciting. But I really think that the Dodgers would get them back here, even though we try to calm people down. Like, don't worry, they're not going to win 108 games, but they might win back-to-back World Series. And that's what I have.
Yeah. You and me have been big proponents of like don't harass the Dodgers for doing things better than your favorite team. Because it's not sure that they're going to win the World Series, but I also have them winning the World Series here. And I don't hate them. I really enjoy the Dodgers, and I think they're such a cool and interesting team to watch because they do every facet so well. You can call me glazing. I don't care. Like, it's, if you like baseball and you're a true fan of baseball, you appreciate how the Dodgers go about their business. My World Series MVP, I think the Dodgers win this in 5 games, by the way. I think they just overpower the Red Sox. To get his 4th World Series, which is not something many people can say, I'm going to have Mookie Betts getting it against his former team. I think the storyline is completely there. And while, advanced analytics make up a ton of baseball, romance makes up the other 10% of it. And this would be a perfect way for Mookie Betts to play his former team, get his 4th ring, and really just become a surefire Hall of Famer if he isn't already, and just show kind of the journey he's been on this season as well too. So Mookie Betts, my World Series MVP. Dodgers in 5. Skyler has Dodgers in 6, and a Mookie Betts MVP as well too. So pencil it in. Place your bets. It is happening. The Dodgers are winning the World Series again. So I'm sorry, all you haters, but that's how it's going to go. Moving to the second half, where I don't know if you have a typo here, but it says Stephon Diggs.
No, that was on purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, second half, right, is mostly baseball. We've been here for a long time. That's why we're laughing about this. But basically, there's a couple things I want to check up on before we take another week off of football news. Because the Titans look like they're closing in on Cam Ward with the number 1 pick. They scheduled another private meeting after the pro day. The pro days have all been going on. We're getting new numbers, new news. But I like to wait a little bit till we get about a week till the draft. Some other football news, too, though. The Giants have a new quarterback, and they have his backup, too. Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson. I'm not sure exactly what the plan was. Maybe to not get fired if you're Brian Dable and company. I forget what their GM's name is, but he's a loser. Who cares? Is Shadur Sanders still a landing spot there? Because his dad was saying some stuff about going to New York yesterday. Weird. We'll get more into that next week. And then, of course, Stephon Diggs got paid by the Patriots. This move is hilarious to me because I hate the Patriots, and I think Stephon Diggs is done. You got anything else on Stephon Diggs? I don't think he deserved that type of money.
Yeah, I think that was pretty crazy. I was expecting like a 1-year deal or something like that. And when I saw just like how my notifications work, usually it's like you can see the money, you can see the player, but you can't quite see the team yet in the notification. You have to click on it to see who it is. I saw the team, or I saw it was Diggs. I saw the money, and I said, please do not be the Raiders, because I do not want to commit that amount of money to a guy. I'm happy it wasn't us. I guess good for Drake May. He gets a guy that he can throw to. And the Giants situation will too. I think that probably – I know it's not like a ridiculous amount of money that they're committing to both those guys, but I think this takes them out of the Shadur Sanders race. I saw an interesting tweet from Vic Tafur, the Raiders beat writer, about 30 minutes after that happened, saying GM and head coach need to win or else they lose their jobs and they get Jameis and Russ, ... But I think that's a better option than getting Shadur or Cam Ward. Yeah, probably not going to get Cam Ward because they have the 3rd pick and Titans probably taking 1. But you're probably not going to win with Shadur right away. So if you don't and you go, 4-13, 5-12 with them because of your shitty group around him, then yeah, you're fucking gone. Like you're not getting your job back. I think now with what they're in, say Russ and Jameis are in there, they take, I don't know, Travis Hunter at 3, one of the best prospects we've ever seen.
Down for that.
They're probably a bit better chance to win 7 games, which I think could buy them another year potentially, knowing that they're maybe not in the best spot QB position wise, and with how good this QB class is next year, you trade back in, or you're fine with the 13th pick or whatever, and you get your franchise guy. I think that's exactly what they're looking at right now. I think that's the blueprint, because it just wouldn't make sense for them to take Shedeur at 3 at this point. And I think we could see a team trade up. If they don't fall in love with Travis Hunter, they could trade out. But I think all bets are off with the quarterback at 3 now for me.
I just hope they throw in Jameis when it's time, right? Of course, if he doesn't win the starting job, but no one wants to watch Russell Wilson struggle out there and Malik Neighbors lose his goddamn mind.
It's either Russell Wilson, 199 yards per game and 0 picks, or it's Jameis Winston, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 picks every single game. So when you have two equally bads, play the one that's going to make us turn on the TV and check our fantasy receivers a bit more. So There's that. But moving on to layups bowl predictions. Last week was a rough week. The one that we did hit was my layup. I had Roki Sasaki under 12.5 outs. I thought he'd struggle a bit with his fastball. He couldn't throw anything for a strike. He ended up only getting through 3 innings, only gave up 1 run, but I believe had 5 walks. So that went green. Skyler had 12-seeded Liberty plus 6.5 versus 5-seeded Oregon. Oregon got their way in that one. We won't even talk about what that final score was because I believe it was a lot. Yes. This week, baseball's here, so I'm taking a baseball bet. Over 4.5 in the first 5 between Baltimore and Toronto on Thursday. That's Eflin versus Barrios. Both those teams actually have really good track records against those guys. So I think they get lit up, and we see some runs to start off that game in Canada.
Okay. I got to watch for a weekend before I have baseball bets because my mind will think about it forever. I'll go back and forth. So I'm going to do Sweet 16 picks instead. The funny part about March Madness, Kyle, I shared this with you. Sometimes the joke brackets do more than the podcast brackets. So I got all my picks on the podcast wrong, even though I do have a couple of pretty good ones. This pick, Tennessee, -3.5 against number 3, Kentucky. Kind of a rivalry game, but Kentucky hasn't really showed us anything. They haven't been tested. Troy and Illinois were close wins. I'm going with the Vols. Really like their 2 quick guards, Chaz Lanier, Zakai Ziegler, excuse me. Lots of Z's. Sheesh.
Moving to our bowl predictions. Last week I had Max Muncy homer. He hit a double his first at bat in that second game. So his hits, runs, ribbies hit, but his home run did not, unfortunately. But that was a pretty wide bet. Skyler had number 10 Utah State over number 7 UCLA. UCLA won that game, actually, which was I wouldn't say a bit of a surprise, but how they played was pretty good, and they get the win there. This week, I have Laddie Jr. homer on opening day. Like I said, there's some pretty good matchups for that game between Baltimore and Toronto on Thursday. Offensively, Vladdy's a great one. He's 7 of 19 versus Eflin with a double, 2 homers, only 1 strikeout, has not walked, so more swinging. 376 expected batting average in those 19 at-bats with a 750 expected slug. So he's been hitting the ball hard against Eflin, and I think he could get one out the ballpark for what could be a really big season for him.
All right. My bold prediction, again, is March Madness, Sweet 16. I'm predicting a blowout. Number 1 seeded Houston beats number 4 Purdue by 20-plus points. Houston is a 7.5-point favorite, not quite 20. But here's the thing. Purdue escaped High Point at the end. They didn't look great against McNeese, but had way more size. Houston, again, they were tested against Gonzaga. They had to come back to win that game. And not to mention, they beat BYU last week by 20 points. BYU, I think, is better than Purdue. I think Houston can do it.
That's going to do it, though, for episode 237. I have no clue how long we've been going, but I'm stumbling on my words that I have this entire day.
Almost 2 hours.
I believe we're pretty close to 2 hours, which really makes me hope that the record button worked when you pressed it.
Yes, it did.
And everything tracks well. That'd be unfortunate, but we're really excited for another year of the MLB. Always one of our favorite episodes. And next week we'll probably have some bold predictions or something like that from the first week of games or first half week of games. And yeah, you got any parting notes? What do you want to say?
Very excited for opening day. Don't forget about supercharged players in Diamond Dynasty too. Guy goes off, go buy him real quick, or hold on and sell him when he goes up to a couple thousand.
Or play 75 ranked season games in a week, like our boy, who shall not be named.
Shall not be named.
Yeah.
He did lose a little man too.
Who doesn't? He's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I know, for real. Well, all right. Yeah. Good talking with you, Kyle. Love making predictions. Let's hope we get a couple right, and hopefully we don't piss too many people off with our bust picks either.
Yeah, it's dinner time. Let's eat.